Harry Potter lore goes pretty deep, probably deeper than most people realize. In this video, I thought it would be fun to go through 50 random Harry Potter lore facts. These facts will be things you wouldn't know if you just read the 7 Harry Potter books. These are things that go much deeper into the fabulous lore of the wizarding world. If you enjoy this video, hit that like button. It will greatly help the channel with the algorithm. And if you like what you see, hit that subscribe button, and you can also follow me on all of my other social medias, all of which are linked down below, and all of which house similar content that I make here on this channel. Now that I've said that, let's get into the video. 1. The shortest Minister of Magic term was Basil Flack in 1772, who only lasted a few months. He resigned after the goblins joined forces with the werewolves during the Goblin Rebellion. To be honest, I don't blame him. That is absolutely terrifying. 2. If a witch or wizard owns a pensieve in their lifetime, which is very rare in the wizarding world, that witch or wizard is often buried with the pensieve because it is considered an intensely personal artifact, and the memories the person add to it will not be disturbed if it's buried with them. The pensieve that Dumbledore used, however, did not belong to him, but rather to the school of Hogwarts, which is why he wasn't buried with it. 3. In 1899, a witch studying time travel named Alois Mintumble traveled back to 1402. She spent 5 days there, and in that time, she changed the course of 25 people's lives, making their descendants vanish in the present, having never been born. On top of that, when she traveled back to the present in 1899, she aged 5 centuries, which made the experimenters realize that however far you go back in time, when you return to the present, you age how many years you went back. Mintumble died in St. Mungo's Hospital shortly after returning to the present. 4. Voldemort's army did not originally have the name Death Eaters. When Tom Riddle formed his original group, he named them the Knights of Walpurgis. Its original membership comprised Slytherin students that Voldemort knew during his time at Hogwarts, all of whom revered him. 5. When America's wizarding community was first being developed, corrupt wizards from Europe and beyond, later called Scowlers, fled to America to take advantage of the lack of organized law enforcement in the early days of MACUSA. 6. If you produce a Patronus charm when you're not pure of heart, maggots will come out of the end of your wand and they will devour you. The first person this happened to was a dark wizard named Raxidian. This phenomenon rarely happens though, because most dark wizards align themselves with Dementors, meaning they did not have to fight them off. 7. The French wizarding school Beauxbaton was actually part funded by alchemist Nicolas Flamel, the creator of the Philosopher's Stone, and he donated this money alongside his wife Perenelle Flamel, who he actually met and fell in love with during his time at Beauxbaton. There is now a fountain in the middle of the school's park named after them, and it is believed to have healing and beautifying properties. Speaking of beautifying properties, Scentbird fragrances can boost your confidence and attractiveness. Scent can play a role in non-verbal communication, shaping how you're perceived. It's a great conversation starter. Whenever I wear a scent from Scentbird, I get all kinds of compliments saying how good I smell, which is also another example of how it makes you more confident. This month I got scents from Zare Icon, Avant, and Scents of Wood. Avant was my favorite for this month. It has a flowery scent, but one that actually suits males, which you don't see that much with flowery scents. It was made with orange blossom, jasmine, vanilla, and a few other special ingredients as well. Scentbird's products come in really nice vials with a great case that always has fabulous colors. This case also makes it super portable. You can throw it in your pocket. If you're a girl, you can throw it in your handbag. And I always throw mine in my gym bag to make sure I smell good after my workout whenever I have to go to appointments or meetings afterwards. Scentbird is not only affordable, but it's also a great way to find a scent you like. Let's be honest, committing to a normal size fragrance can be risky because if you don't like it, you're stuck with this giant bottle. With Scentbird, you get enough of the fragrance to see if you like the scent and test it out, but not so much that it goes to waste or just sits on your dresser. You can find the scents that match your preferences when taking the Scentbird quiz, and you can do it from the comfort of your own home and have it delivered right to your door. If you're interested in Scentbird, you can scan the QR code that's on the screen right now, or you can use code FLAME55 to get 55% off your first month. Again, that's code FLAME55 to get 55% off, and you can also find the link down below in the description as well as in the pinned comment. It's a great deal, so don't miss out on this offer. Now, let's get back to the video. 8. Rita Skeeter, who of course wrote the biography on Albus Dumbledore, later published a book about the members of Dumbledore's army titled Dumbledore's Army: The Dark Side of the Demob, and she released it on Harry's 34th birthday on July 31st, 2014. 9. Sir Cadogan, the man depicted in a painting at Hogwarts, was actually one of the Knights of the Round Table for King Arthur, and he got there because of his friendship with Merlin himself. And bonus fact, Merlin went to Hogwarts. 10. The worst and biggest breach of the statute of secrecy happened in America in 1790 when the daughter of one of the highest ranked people in MACUSA named Dorcas told a handsome No-Maj named Bartholomew Barebone everything she could about the wizarding world in America. She showed her wand, demonstrated magic, and gave up key locations of the wizarding government, including the MACUSA headquarters and the school Ilvermorny. Little did she know, she was speaking to a descendant of a Scourer who had disappeared into the No-Maj community to avoid being prosecuted, and who had put a deep hatred and belief in wizard kind in his No-Maj family. Bartholomew stole her wand, exposed everything she had told him, even giving it to No-Maj news outlets who reported on it with a picture of the wand. Barebone also gathered a band of No-Maj and went to the location Dorcas told him about, aiming to kill all of wizard kind. This incident led to Rappaport's Law, which made very strict guidelines on the segregation of wizard kind and the No-Maj. And this is why in Fantastic Beasts, they said that wizard kind could have no contact with any No-Maj. 11. The Night Bus was created in 1865, and it was brought into fruition by Minister of Magic Dugald MacPhail. He agreed upon the form of a bus, which took inspiration from the relatively new bus service that Muggles had created. Because of the Muggle influence, many pureblood wizards boycotted in outrage. Nevertheless, the Night Bus project continued, and it still runs to this day. 12. Dolores Umbridge had a father who she was ashamed of because he was basically a janitor for the Ministry of Magic. When she worked her way up in the ministry herself, she convinced her father to take an early retirement, convincing him to do so by giving him a small financial allowance from her own salary. This ensured that the father she was embarrassed of would drop out of sight quietly. If anyone asked if she was related to the Umbridge who used to mop the floors, she denied she had any connection to him, instead saying that her father had died and was a distinguished member of the Wizengamot. Anyone who said otherwise always seemed to have something bad happen to them. 13. The land that Malfoy Manor sits on was actually gifted to their ancestor Armand Malfoy. King William I gave him this land, which was payment for helping him conquer the invading Norman army. Armand almost certainly used magic to help him in this victory. When the house was built there, every generation of the Malfoys for the last 10 centuries have resided in that house. 14. If two werewolves mate at the full moon, the result of the mating will be wolf cubs, which resemble true wolves in every way except their abnormally high intelligence. They are basically a normal wolf, not seeking out humans for attack like a werewolf would. This has only happened twice in history, and one of these litters was released in the Forbidden Forest at Hogwarts, commissioned by Dumbledore. 15. Squibs, or those born to wizard or witch parents but who have no magical ability themselves, lived in the shadows for many years in the wizarding world. It wasn't until a man named Angus Buchanan wrote the book My Life as a Squib that the wizarding world became aware of such people. The book details how Angus actually faked being a wizard, and he got as far as putting the sorting hat on at Hogwarts before the sorting hat said he had no magical ability. Angus became famous for his book in the wizarding world, and he also became famous in the Muggle world as well for his dominance in the Muggle sport rugby. 16. Mahoutō Kōrō, the Japanese wizarding school, takes students from the age of 7, which is 4 years younger than other wizarding schools. However, Mahoutō Kōrō does not board the students until they turn 11. The younger students are taken back and forth on a giant flock of storm petrels. 17. While the worst wizarding criminals in the UK were sent to Azkaban prison, in America, the worst wizarding criminals were simply executed. 18. Gilderoy Lockhart was born to a witch mother and a muggle father, and he was one of 3. Of his 3 siblings, Gilderoy was the only one to have magical abilities. This made him the obvious favorite of his mother, which is a big reason why he became so arrogant. 19. The first ever Aurors in America consisted of 12 people, all of whom took on perhaps the hardest job any Auror has ever faced with the Scowlers. Out of the 12, only 2 survived, and all 12 were marked into a special place of United States wizarding history. 20. Going off of that, one of the first 12 Aurors for America was a man named Abraham Potter, whose distant relationship to the famous Harry Potter would be uncovered by eager historians centuries later. 21. Many parents in the wizarding world pay a hefty amount of gold to a person called a naming seer. Before the child is born, this seer will predict the child's future and suggest an appropriate name for the child based on that. This practice is becoming increasingly rare though, because many parents that do this wish they had not heard the seer's prediction about their child's personality and future. 22. The Chamber of Secrets was not originally in a bathroom. It was merely a hidden trapdoor that led to all sorts of tunnels. When plumbing was added to the school, it was put on top of the trapdoor without anyone knowing. One person did know though, a student at the time named Corvinus Gaunt, who was a direct descendant of Salazar Slytherin himself. He ensured that you could still get to the chamber, and he added a mark that signaled the entrance to those who knew how to enter it. This of course was the snake on the sink. 23. The Sacred 28 is a list of pureblood families, or a pureblood directory if you will, and it lists the 28 families who are truly pureblood families, ensuring that they could maintain the purity of their bloodlines. A few names you might recognize include Black, Caro, Crouch, Gaunt, Lestrange, Longbottom, Malfoy, Ollivander, Parkinson, Shacklebolt, Slughorn, Weasley, and 16 others. Many of these families, however, call BS on this list, including the Weasleys. The Weasleys said that they had married and mated with very interesting muggles, which makes the others on the list call the Weasleys blood traitors. 24. Extension charms, or the enlarging of the inside of an object, are carefully regulated by the Ministry of Magic, and all objects must be approved by the Ministry. The approved items include tents, and most trunks students take to Hogwarts. This means that both Arthur Weasley and Hermione Granger broke this law because they used this spell during the 7 books. Arthur used it to enlarge the inside of his flying car, and Hermione used it to enlarge the inside of her bag while on the run in the Deathly Hallows. 25. In 1855, there was a woman named Violet Tillyman who used the Flu Network after having a fight with her husband. This led to one of the most mysterious disappearances in Wizarding World history. She planned to go to her mother's house, but between sobs and hiccups, she didn't make it there, basically doing the same thing that Harry did in the Chamber of Secrets when trying to get to Diagon Alley. Several weeks later, her husband went to Violet's mother's house hoping to tell her to come home, but his mother-in-law said she never arrived there. The Daily Prophet picked this up, and everyone was in a scramble to find her, but they never did. It was not until her bully of a husband died that she reappeared 20 years later. It turned out that she ended up in a man named Myron Otherhouse's fireplace, a handsome wizard who she fell in love with. In her reappearance after being gone for 20 years, she was joined by her new husband Myron and their 7 children. 26. Petunia was terrified to tell Vernon Dursley, who at the time was her fiancé, about her witch sister, and when she finally confessed during a tear-stained date in Vernon's car, he was deeply shocked, but he said he would never hold it against Petunia for having a freak for a sister. This meant so much to Petunia that she jumped on Vernon to hug him. 27. Before the Statute of Secrecy was implemented, the Malfoy family dabbled in ventures with rich and high-class muggles for many centuries, which was a big reason why they got so wealthy. When the Statute of Secrecy was pitched, the Malfoy family fought against it, knowing that this would mean their many deals and fraternizing with the muggles wouldn't be possible. This is a part of their history that current-day Malfoys try to hide, because they now have a great disdain for muggles and muggleborns. This also means that the Weasleys were right about the Sacred 28 list being BS, because judging from this, the Malfoys almost certainly mated with muggles, meaning their blood is not pure. 28. There have been several attempts to remove Peeves the Poltergeist from Hogwarts Castle, the most recent and most disastrous one being in 1876. The caretaker at the time, Rancorous Carp, devised an elaborate trap. He put a number of weapons that he knew Peeves could not resist in an enchanted glass jar. When Peeves was baited, the glass jar, which had a containment charm on it, fell over the poltergeist. However, Peeves broke through the glass and was now armed with the many weapons that were inside the jar, including a crossbow and a mini cannon. The castle had to be evacuated as Peeves threatened everyone with death. There was a 3-day standoff, which ended with the current headmistress, Professor Mole, agreeing to sign a contract that allowed Peeves additional privileges that he did not have before. 29. At Vernon and Petunia's wedding, Petunia refused to make her sister Lily a bridesmaid, not wanting to be overshadowed by Lily again, which deeply hurt Lily. Meanwhile, Vernon refused to speak to James at the reception and told people within the earshot of James that he was some kind of amateur magician. 30. In the 1770s, around the time of the Revolutionary War, there was a massive MACUSA meeting to decide whether or not to help in this war. Pro-interventionists argued that they might be able to save lives, while anti-interventionists said that wizards would risk their own security by revealing themselves in battle. In the end, they asked the Ministry of Magic in London what they intended to do, and the current Minister of Magic, McGillicuddy, came back with a 4-word response: sitting this one out. This 4-word response convinced MACUSA to sit it out as well. 31. As we know from the books, the Ollivander family has been selling wands since 382 BC. What we find out in later Harry Potter lore, though, is that the first of the Ollivanders to sell wands came to the country with the Romans, and they set up their first shop to give witches and wizards wands that were far better made than the ones people had created thus far. 32. Eileen Marge Dursley was in love with a man named Colonel Fubster, who looked after her dogs when she was away. However, he refused to marry her due to her horrible personality. This rejection of course fuels a lot of her nasty behavior to other people. 33. King's Cross of course houses platform 9 3/4 in between platforms 9 and 10. What the series didn't go over though is that there are actually other platforms similar to this one in between other platform numbers, including platform 7.5. These platforms that house their own trains would take you to many wizard-only villages in continental Europe. Some of these are only opened on an as-required basis, an example of this being a concert for the famous singer Celestina Warbeck. 34. The Hogwarts Express was brought to fruition by Minister of Magic Adeline Gamble, who was fascinated by Muggle trains. To build it, it was a mass operation that involved 167 memory charms and the largest ever mass concealment charm performed on the Muggles that built it for them. After it was built, they added some magical modifications to it. 35. There was a man known as the original Dark Wizard named Herpo the Foul. He was the original Parselmouth who could speak to snakes. He was the one who figured out how to breed the deadly beast basilisks. And he was the person who invented Horcruxes, which required one to murder a person to split their soul and then put it into an object. Just thinking about that, imagine how many people he had to kill to figure out this very advanced piece of magic. He probably had to experiment a lot, and each experiment of course led to him murdering someone. He really lives up to the name of the original Dark Wizard. 36. Hogwarts and Beauxbaton have faced each other 125 times in the Triwizard Tournament, and the current record has Beauxbaton with 62 wins, while Hogwarts has 63. 37. Minerva McGonagall's mother, Isabel Ross, didn't tell her husband Robert that she was a witch until many years after they got together. In the time before she told them, they had dated, eloped and gotten married, went on their honeymoon, and had their first child, that being Minerva McGonagall. It was only when Minerva started to show signs of magic that Isabel told Robert, worried that he would witness Minerva performing magic. Isabel keeping this from Robert forever broke the trust he had in Isabel, and their relationship was never the same. 38. Abraxas Malfoy, Draco Malfoy's grandfather, is strongly believed to be a part of a shady plot that saw the first ever Muggle-born Minister of Magic, Nobby Leach, leave his post prematurely, which was most likely the cause of many nasty threats. 39. A hat stall at Hogwarts is when, during the sorting ceremony, the sorting hat takes longer than 5 minutes to decide a student's house. This is very rare, only occurring once about every 50 years. The closest anybody got to this in Harry's time at Hogwarts was actually Hermione Granger, as the hat took 4 minutes trying to decide between Gryffindor and Ravenclaw. A fact that the book did not go over, which kinda confuses me, but JK said that's canon, so I guess it's canon. 40. Going off of that, when Minerva McGonagall got sorted, she had a hat stall as the hat was choosing between Gryffindor and Ravenclaw, ultimately landing on Gryffindor. Meanwhile, Phileas Flitwick had the opposite, as the hat was also choosing between Gryffindor and Ravenclaw, but the outcome was choosing Ravenclaw. When McGonagall and Flitwick worked together at Hogwarts, each being the head of their respective house, they joked about how, if not for those crucial moments in their youth, they might have exchanged positions, McGonagall being the head of Ravenclaw and Flitwick being the head of Gryffindor. 41. Before McGonagall worked at Hogwarts, she actually worked in the Ministry of Magic, but she was very unhappy there. When she was offered a promotion 2 years in, she turned it down, instead sending an owl to Hogwarts asking if she could have a teaching post. The owl returned within hours from the headmaster Albus Dumbledore, offering her a job in the Transfiguration Department. Minerva went to Hogwarts and never looked back. 42. The last piece of correspondence Petunia ever received from her sister Lily was receiving a card announcing Harry's birth, and after one contemptuous look, Petunia threw it in the trash. 43. Fleamont Potter, Harry Potter's grandfather, invented Magical Sleekeasy's hair potion, which made the already wealthy Potter family even more wealthy. This is why Harry had that giant pile of gold left to him at Gringotts. 44. The Japanese have an outstanding Quidditch reputation, which is attributed to the harsh training players received while at the Japanese wizarding school Mahuto Koro. They would practice over turbulent sea and stormy conditions, forced to keep an eye out for not only bludgers, but also planes from the Muggle airbase on the neighboring island. 45. In America, there are strict laws on wands. Students do not get their wand until after they are sorted into their house at Ilvermorny. After getting their house, they are led into a large hall where they select or are selected by a wand. On top of that, students were forced to leave their wands at school when they went home for vacations or holidays, and they were only granted full access to their wand when they turned 17. However, even then, they were required to carry a wand permit, which allowed the government to keep tabs on magical activity. This is obviously J.K. Rowling's stance on gun control in America. 46. The Leaky Cauldron faced a difficult challenge in the late 19th century with the creation of Charing Cross Road, which ought to have flattened the pub completely. However, the wizarding community rallied. They performed a mass of memory charms on the Muggle town players, some saying that they even used the illegal Imperius curse on them. This allowed the Leaky Cauldron to be added to the now revised plans for the road. Muggle architects involved never understood why they had left a gap in their plans for the building, nor why that gap was not visible to the naked eye for Muggles. 47. For the 2014 Quidditch World Cup, the Argentinian Council of Magic who was hosting thought it was a good idea to stage a mass mascot-themed opening ceremony with many dangerous beasts. This resulted in two of the magical beasts fighting, the Dukuwaga, a shapeshifter who can transform from fish to man, and the Selma, a giant lake serpent that devours human flesh. This fight then led to Sasabonums, vampires, and Inferi to go crazy, fighting both themselves and the crowd. This resulted in 300 crowd members suffering broken bones, bloody bites, and a lot of shock. Healers and magizoologists had to be brought in to contain the situation and tend to the wounded, resulting in one of the most controversial Quidditch World Cups before it even began. 48. The Potter family's origin comes from a 12th century wizard named Linfred Stinchcombe. He was given the nickname the Potterer by his Muggle neighbors because he was always pottering around his garden. Potterer was soon shortened to Potter, which then became the start of the wizarding family, the Potters. 49. The way kids are selected for Hogwarts is by a book and quill called the Quill of Acceptance and the Book of Admittance. They work together, sensing when kids use magic, and when they both agree that them using magic is sufficient enough proof that they have magical ability, the quill writes their name down in the book. No human has touched this book since the 4 founders of Hogwarts placed it there at the beginning of Hogwarts' existence in 990 AD, and nobody truly knows how it works and what magic powers it. 50. Before Muggleborns were called Muggleborns or Mudbloods, there was a term for them called Magbobs, the thought being that their magic bobbed up out of nowhere. And that is 50 random Harry Potter lore facts. Let me know in the comments below how many facts you knew or didn't know. If you enjoyed this video, let me know if you want a part 2, because I went a little crazy when going through Harry Potter lore. I wrote down almost 200 lore facts, so there's quite enough for part 2 and probably part 3 and 4. Thank you again to Scentbird for sponsoring this video. You can use code FLAME55 to get 55% off your first month. That's all I have for you guys today though, so I will see you in the next video.